Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed and see how each movie did. If I sound a bit funny in this video, it is because I'm recovering from a cold. I'm feeling a little bit better now, but I apologize if I still sound a bit iffy in this video. But without further ado, let's get started. Number 5 was The Boogeyman, making $7.1 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $24 million and a worldwide total of $39 million. So for a horror movie, this movie actually held pretty well for itself. It only dropped around 42%, which again, for a horror movie is pretty good, but still that's unfortunately not enough to help the movie out. Yes, it surpassed its initial $35 million budget, but it still needs to double that, and I feel like it's gonna be a long journey to get to that doubling point worldwide, and it's probably still going to be able to surpass its initial budget domestically, but again, a long journey to double that domestically as well. I just think this budget was just a bit too high for the type of movie this is, given the summer movie season and the number of other movies coming out. Unfortunately, I don't think this movie is standing out from the crowd like I thought I would, and unfortunately, it's looking like a pretty big disappointment overall, especially given how strong this year has been for horror. So unfortunately, while it's not a complete total failure, I do think this is a bit of a disappointment, to say the least. I think they were hoping for something bigger and better with this movie, given the buzz, but unfortunately I don't think it was meant to be, sadly. Number 4 was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, making $7.2 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $335 million and a worldwide total of $806 million. So this movie continues to put up a good fight. As you could tell, there was around $100,000 difference between both this and The Boogeyman, which is very impressive, but Guardians came out on top. Of course, it was able to surpass the both worldwide and domestic totals of the first Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a great thing. I don't think it's going to surpass Volume 2's domestic or worldwide totals. That seems a bit of a reach, and it was finally able to surpass the $800 million milestone worldwide. Even with the stiff competition around all these big movies, more and more of them coming out, this movie's still putting up a good fight, standing out amongst the crowd. It only dropped 32%, which is great. However, I do believe this will be one of, if not the last time we see it in the top 5, again, given the number of movies coming out. But man, it was still able to put up a good fight. After a admittedly lackluster opening weekend, it still was able to get to 100 million opening weekend, but it seemed a bit of a letdown for that opening, but it was able to beat all the odds and exceed expectations and become one of the biggest movies of the year. So job well done. Once again, much needed win for Marvel, a great win for James Gunn, great win for the franchise overall. Number 3 was The Little Mermaid, making $23 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $229 million and a worldwide total of $414 million. So the film had a much better hold than last weekend, only dropping 44%, which is what you'd probably expect for a family film, especially during the summer. It was also able to surpass the $200 million milestone domestically and the $400 million milestone worldwide, which, all things said and done, is pretty good, but unfortunately I don't think these are the numbers Disney wanted for this movie. The budget is just so ridiculously high, and I assume they were hoping for a much bigger turnout than what's given here, as the international numbers are just not doing anything special. It's not really performing like I think they thought it would internationally. Domestically, it's doing pretty good for itself. I could see it surpassing 250 million very soon, but yeah, I think they were really hoping for something much bigger here. If anything, 500 million worldwide seems like a safe bet, but I'm not sure if it's going to get to anything bigger than that. So yeah, while not a total disaster, not a total failure, it is doing pretty well domestically, and apparently it's opening in Japan very soon, so at least there's that. I don't know if this movie's gonna cut it as a big success. I think this might be a bit of a disappointment. Not a Fast X level disappointment, mind you, but certainly a disappointment. Number 2 was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, making $55 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $225 million and a worldwide total of $390 million. So this weekend for the movie kind of surprised me. I was expecting it to hold a bit better, maybe even reclaim the number one spot, but apparently the competition was much bigger and fiercer than I was expecting, but more on that later. But even regardless, this movie still is doing very well. It had one of the better second weekend drop-offs for a comic book movie this year, without a doubt, and it is now officially Sony Pictures Animation's biggest movie of all time domestically, worldwide. It still has a ways to go before surpassing the Smurfs to become the highest grossing film from them worldwide. But even if so, I still think this movie has a shot. It has already surpassed the Into the Spider-Verse, the predecessor, in just 1 week. So I think anything's possible. Word of mouth has just been killing it. It's been pretty much everything everybody has been talking about for the past couple days, at least from my point of view, and I think it's going to continue to be a very successful movie, especially given that it's a $100 million movie and it's already tripled now, almost quadrupling its $100 million budget. It's just $10 billion away from surpassing the $400 million milestone worldwide. Can you believe that? This weekend, however, I think is going to be a very interesting weekend for this movie, as not only is it facing off against two big movies, but one of them is a comic book film and the other is an animated film. Pretty much all of this movie's audience. So it'll be interesting to see how this movie faces off against the both of them. But I'm gonna have faith. I think this movie might be able to continue to do very well, and even if it does hurt a little bit from this weekend, it's still a huge success regardless. And yeah, very solid numbers for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And finally, let's end the video off with the number one movie of the weekend, which was Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, opening with $61 million domestically this weekend and $171 million worldwide. This is the fifth biggest opening weekend of the summer, behind Fast X, The Little Mermaid, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and the fifth biggest opening weekend for a Transformers film, topping Transformers: The Last Knight and Bumblebee, but sitting behind the first Transformers, Age of Extinction, Dark of the Moon, and Revenge of the Fallen. So this movie exceeded my expectations. I was pretty bit iffy about how this movie was going to do. I wasn't really sure if this movie was going to make enough to qualify for a success, but no, it was actually way bigger competition for Spider-Verse. Once again, I thought Spider-Verse would easily reclaim the number one spot, but no, it seemed that there was enough interest in Transformers here, and people seemed to really like it. It got an A- on CinemaScore, which is pretty good. And in terms of its budget, this is a very expensive movie. It costed $195 million, but it's pretty much made a majority of that worldwide. So this is definitely a good start for the film. What I'm most interested about is its legs. Again, competition is fierce. It'll be interesting to see how this movie faces off against all of that. We'll see if it can pull off, a Guardians of the Galaxy or even a Spider-Verse. It maybe manages to have stellar word of mouth that carries it and brings it back to the glory days of this franchise, where these were huge tentpole summer blockbusters, or it'll probably plummet like Fast X and completely embarrass ourselves. I don't know, but right now I do think this is a very impressive start. I think this is a good start, a good enough start off for the film. Definitely puts it in a better position than I think many people had initially, and it'll definitely be interesting to see where this movie goes. So yeah, a good start for Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Certainly surprised me. Hopefully this continues in the right direction. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we have 2 new major wide releases. I do know that The Blackening also comes out this weekend, but given the minimal marketing and buzz for it, I just don't have that many high expectations for it. So let's move on to the other 2 movies, starting with Elemental, the newest animated original film from Pixar. Now, it has been a rough decade for Pixar. Almost all of their movies went to Disney Plus for free because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the movie that they did send to theaters last year, Lightyear, was a complete bomb, so they are really banking on this one, and I'm gonna be honest, I have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I do think that the premise and even the character designs are cute and intriguing enough to entice the family movie going audience, and I think that given it's definitely something for much younger kids, I feel like it's going to attract a bit more of the family dynamic than Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I also think that given the Pixar name, that's going to give it some buzz as well. And reviews, while they didn't initially start so great, at the time of this recording, they are getting better. Right, at first it was like at a 57, but now it's at, like, the last I checked, it was like at an 80%, so that's good. So hopefully that helps it out, and the marketing is actually really solid. I've been seeing a lot of promotion for this stuff, certainly more than Strange World and even the Bob's Burgers movie from last year. Downside, though, is the buzz. I'm not seeing a whole lot of buzz for this. I do see people talking about it. And a lot of people that I know are interested in it, but it's not a huge sum of people that I know that are really interested or excited to see it, so that's going to be the big draw. And of course, Spider-Verse is still in theaters, and I think that a lot of people still really want to see it or are going to keep seeing it again and again. So definitely this is going to be a very interesting weekend. We'll see how this does. And then the other big wide release is The Flash, the newest entry from the DC Cinematic Universe, or the one that's going to reset it. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, this is another comic book movie, a very controversial one given the actor. And this is another one that I think is going to be a pretty mixed bag. I can see this movie exceeding expectations and falling below expectations. The marketing has been very solid. I've been seeing a lot of promos for this movie. There is buzz for it. It is a comic book movie that is being definitely well received, on the better end of the stick than most recent comic book movies for sure. But the downside is I don't think the response that critics gave this movie is what Warner Brothers wanted. They've been hyping this up as, oh, this is the greatest superhero movie ever, and most critics are like, yeah, it's good. That's about it. And given the lackluster response to comic book movies recently, I could see this opening being slightly under what people think it might be. I feel like there are going to be that percentage of people who are going to wait out that opening weekend and hear from what their friends or family say about the movie, or people who have already seen it that weekend, and then choose to see it or not after. So yeah, I really think this is a mixed bag. This is definitely going to be a very interesting opening weekend for sure, especially since that Warner Brothers has put all their money into this one movie. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that landed in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.